I'm here today on the Las Vegas Strip. Terry and I ministered here in Las Vegas for 4 years, and we continue to visit our churches here whenever we can. One of the unique things about this city is the architecture. Architecturally, you can find just about any building: the Empire State Building, the Brooklyn Bridge, a Great Pyramid, Caesar's Palace, and of course, the Sphinx. Every time I visit this city, it seems that there is another new and interesting building to see. But all of this architecture, while beautiful, is merely a facade. Vegas workmen can make just about any building look like something else. A Brooklyn brownstone, a Mexican hacienda, a Northwoods River Rock Lodge, whatever you'd like, they can build it. But of course, the look is only on the surface. These buildings are not solid marble or granite like the originals. The external beauty of the original building has been copied, but without the substance. The marble, granite, and sandstone are mostly fake and never thick. This reminds me of the accusation that the prophet Ezekiel made about the false prophets of Israel. He said, "Her prophets plastered them with untempered mortar." Workmen can plaster the exterior of a shack and make it look beautiful, but the beauty is an illusion. I think I've lived in a few houses like that where the builder used paint and molding to cover up some serious flaws. Perhaps you have too. Of course, Ezekiel is not accusing Israel's carpenters and building codes. He's accusing prophets who failed in their responsibility to declare the word of God to their subjects. These ministers held back declaring the word because they wanted to please the people rather than please the master. It reminds me that ministry takes courage, and it reminds me that the Lord will judge how we build. Today, we are honoring our ministerial comrades who have gone to their reward. And as I look at their life and their ministry, I am confident that they were not the target of Israel's rebuke. I'm confident that they built with tempered mortar. But sometimes I wonder about myself. Sometimes I wonder, what about me? Now, these Vegas buildings are fun, but it's obvious that they are copies. They will never make it into the Architectural Hall of Fame. There is, however, one building in southern Nevada that will make the Hall of Fame, but it's not here on the Strip. Without question, the most impressive structure in Nevada is south of town in a deep, barren canyon. This is Hoover Dam. It's massive by any definition. It was the largest construction project in the world at that time. There is enough concrete in this dam to pave a 2-lane highway from San Francisco to New York. This project would have been huge in any situation, but here it is complicated by the remote location and the inhospitable climate and the rugged and dangerous canyon in which it sits. Unlike the structures in Las Vegas, this is not superficial. In fact, it's not even painted. It's just concrete and steel. Construction began in the middle of the Great Depression, and thousands of workers applied for jobs. Every day, thousands of construction workers descended into this desolate and rocky canyon, and they faced the fierce heat. It was over 120 degrees in the canyon and 140 degrees inside the tunnels. The work was dangerous. 96 people died in this construction site, and their names are inscribed on a plaque in the Memorial Hall. And that list doesn't account for dozens of others that died of heat stroke or heart failure, and at least 50 that died of carbon monoxide poisoning. That's the kind of work that is needed to build a structure like this. It's fairly easy to throw up a frail structure and put some plaster on it to cover its flaws. A good plaster man can even make a shoddy building look pretty, but that type of building doesn't have value and it won't last. It takes time and hard work to build something substantial, and sometimes it takes courage, even sacrifice. The contrast between this structure and the ones you see on the strip is a clear example of Ezekiel's accusation, her prophets plastered with untempered mortar. The buildings on the strip are superficial and temporary. This building is substantial and permanent. Omar was just a teenager when he ran away from home and he found a job here. He lied about his age to get on the crew. He told me once about a certain day when he was asked to operate a concrete vibrator. It's a piece of heavy equipment that vibrated the wet concrete in order to help it settle, to get the air out, to make it more dense. And they were pouring a particularly deep section, and Omar was down deep inside the form working the vibrator. There were several other workmen there with shovels spreading the concrete and pushing it into the corners, and the concrete became deeper and deeper, and it became difficult for Omar and the other workers to stay on top of the concrete as they sinked deep in. They stepped and they pulled, but it was impossible to keep from sinking down. And as it rose above their ankles, the foreman began to pull the men out. Finally, all the men had been pulled out except for my Uncle Omar. He looked up to the foreman and he called out for the rope, but the foreman told him to stay down, keep working the equipment. So he did. The concrete continued to rise, and Omar continued to sink, and it rose up over his ankles and over his boots. I wonder what that must have been like, this teenage boy. The splashing of concrete, the drone of the engine, the wet, dusty smell of the cement, the heat and the sweat, and of course his heart pounding, and his adrenaline causing his hands to shake, and of course the fear. Omar began to be afraid that he would sink too deep, and that they would not be able to pull him out, and that he might be buried in the lime. And so he called out for the rope again, but again the foreman told him to continue working. And so he kept his hand to the handle, and the concrete rose higher and higher, over his boots, over his calves, then up to his knees, and higher still. When finally it seemed that he would never be pulled out, a rope dropped to his shoulder, and he put his arms through it, and the crew pulled him to safety. And then the foreman slapped him on the back and said to him, "Good job. Take the rest of the day off." I'm proud of my uncle for that day. I'm sure that he was tired and afraid, but he didn't quit, and he finished the job. And he played an important part in building this magnificent dam, and I'm proud of him for it. Paul said, "I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. And God has a crown for me." Paul received a crown because he finished well. He didn't quit. He didn't take shortcuts. And I suspect that his work will stand the test of the judgment.